G'day, I'm Paul and I've got a question for you. Have you ever been to the pub and had old mate behind the bar tell you your favourite drink's going to be 20% more expensive than what it was last time? Well, that's kind of what Mazda's done with the new Mazda 3. It starts off about $5,000 more than the previous one. Come here and let me show you why. This is the G25 Astina. It's like right at the top of the tree there, and it's priced at just under 40 grand. So it is a lot of money, and Mazda reckons that it is a far more premium proposition, and they've loaded more features into the entire range. Now you can go down to the comments below to see the pricing of the rest of the range, and also to skip ahead if you need to, or if you're not watching this on YouTube, you've got some time codes up there you can jump ahead to. And if you haven't done so already, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and also the bell icon so you know every time we post a new video. Look at this design language. Mazdas have always been really good looking cars, and if you thought the grille on the new BMW 4 Series was a whopper, have a look at this gaping mouth. It is absolutely ginormous, and it's broken up by the registration plate. But I do love the fact that you've got these black highlights here, full LED headlights with those daytime running lights. You can get 8 colors, and then here the Astina comes with these awesome looking black 18-inch alloy wheels. It really just blends in nicely with that color. Come and have a look at this. This is interesting. It's like a big landmass here that they've done nothing with. It looks a little bit strange, but in person it kind of suits the car. It doesn't look too odd. And that brings you around to the back where you've got that swooping line down the rear, and then it sort of cuts off nicely. This is a design statement, especially these concept car LEDs at the back. It's literally just a bank of 4 LEDs there for the indicator, and then this all lights up at night. It is an incredibly stylish looking car. So the outside is stylish, but the inside I reckon is even more stylish. Have a look at this. You don't normally see this kind of customizability inside hatchbacks. Hatchbacks are kind of, they were, I guess, the runabout car. You'd never really buy one because you wanted to be stylish or have an extension of yourself, but this is certainly it. You can option the Astina with the burgundy interior, so seats, doors, dashboard as well, or you can just go all black and then have it offset with these chrome highlights. What I like here that Mazda has done with the vents is you've got your air vents as they normally sit, but instead of just having a blank in the center, you've actually got slats, so it looks like it's one continuous air vent. I think Audi did this first, and Mazda has kind of, I'm not going to say copied, but copied that same design there. So that looks really nice. I love also these knurled knobs. Have a look at that. That is so nice to use. So everything here, all the touch points really feel nice. They're soft. It gives you a real premium feeling, and you feel like the money that you're spending on this car is actually worthwhile. Let's talk infotainment. So this is where Mazda has taken a massive step forward. So MZD Connect, it wasn't the best system and it was getting really dated. So this is now becoming commonplace in a lot of Mazda's cars, which is excellent news. There are some similarities with MZD Connect. So it shares this rotary dial with shortcut buttons, but the biggest difference up here is that it's no longer a touchscreen, so you have to use the dial for everything, which is kind of okay because you're getting a voice recognition system that allows you to do most functions outside of it. In terms of smartphone connectivity, you can hook up Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. I'm going to take you through each of the menus here, so let's start off with information and the fuel efficiency monitor. So iStop is Mazda's version of a stop-start system, and the clever thing here is that it tells you for how many seconds iStop has been running in your last drive. That's useful because then it also tells you how much extra range you've achieved by iStop running. So that is a fantastic feature, and it does go to show exactly how much accumulation you get in fuel savings when that stop-start system is working. And then there's a back button there to take you to the previous screen. The vehicle status monitor has all of your notifications about servicing, any warning messages as well. That's all going to be contained in there. There's also a shortcut to the notifications by pushing that dial to the left. It brings up any notifications you have, so doors open at the moment because we're filming. Let's jump over to entertainment. FM, AM, DAB, so you're getting the full suite of connectivity there. And then in addition to that, you can stream Bluetooth, and you also have 2 USB ports that it can stream through as well. If you then hook up your iPhone or your Android device, you can stream Spotify. So you really do have full access to a fantastic selection of audio sources here. The other thing that I like as well, there is a favorite button just underneath the volume control. Hit that and it will take you to the screen with all of your favorites stored in an easy to find place, or you can just go through the list. That is straightforward. Let's jump into communication. This is your phone menu effectively. All the standard functions here. You've got call history, contacts, you can manually dial numbers. It even lets you check text messages. So if you do the permissions through your phone, your text messages will appear on here as well. Very handy, so you don't need to take your eyes off the road and onto your phone, which in some states in Australia now is like $1,000 fine. So do not touch your phone while you're driving. Navigation is massively improved. Again, the old MZD Connect system was so slow and so painful to use. This is a massive leap forward. So in addition to being able to use your voice controls, you can enter things in manually. And again, it is all simply using this rotary dial here. Adding a destination allows you to search home, work, or simply entering points of interest or addresses manually. Jumping over to the settings menu, this is where you can configure everything inside this car. And the Japanese are kind of interesting because unlike most other manufacturers that allow you to configure things here and there, the Japanese go to town with everything that you can change. So if we go to in-vehicle displays, this is your heads-up display and what appears in there. The center display, you can change virtually everything about the positioning of things and what appears there. And then finally, the instrument cluster display ahead of the driver. So this is an 8.8 inch screen. This is a 7-inch screen. You can change the appearance there and everything that's presented to the driver while you're driving. Then we jump down to sound settings. So the sound system in this car is amazing. I'll run you through that a little bit later on and some of the unique things they've done in this car, plus the song that the engineer chooses to tune these systems. It'll be interesting. See if you can guess it below before we get to it. Safety settings. This is again where you change all of the safety settings unique to this car. Collision avoidance. It even has a pretty clever system that prevents you running into things when you're reversing. So instead of just a 360 camera, front and rear parking sensors, it has rear AEB. So if you're about to hit something and you don't notice, it will stop the car for you, along with a pedal misuse alert. A little bit frustrating for me though, I left foot brake, so it's always telling me I'm pressing both pedals at the same time. Often happens when you're at low speed. So you can switch that off, which is very helpful. And then the rest of your settings, such as connectivity and also system settings. This is everything from voice recognition right through to using the Grace Note database to get thumbnails for your audio on the screen. So let us know what you think of it in the comments below. Have you used it? Do you reckon it's better than the old MZD Connect system? Keen to get your thoughts. So at $40,000, what features are you getting in your Mazda 3 Astina? You'll be glad to hear that it is jam-packed full of them. Let's start with some of the driving functions. So you have autonomous emergency braking. That is the tech that stops the car if you don't. This does it at low and high speed, so it will do it on the highway. It also has vulnerable road user detection. What to cram into there? That's cyclists and pedestrians, so it will stop if either of those goes out in front of you. That's really handy tech. But it also does it in reverse. Now, I did mention that earlier, but I have a confession to make. Reverse AEB is the tech that will stop the car before you hit something in reverse. You may think to yourself that that is the dumbest thing in the world because you've got a 360-degree camera, you've got parking sensors. Why would anyone reverse into anything? Well, I was once in a panic in a 5 Series. I had to get out of a tight parking spot. Thought I put it into drive, but I didn't. Let go of the brake and it started going backwards into the car behind me. All of a sudden, the brakes slammed on and it saved me from getting like probably $2,000 worth of damage just because the tech activated and I didn't have to have that embarrassing phone call to the insurance company. So that is good news. Dual zone climate control, heated seats, but no seat cooling, despite the fact they're perforated. Normally that means they add in seat cooling as well. Heated steering wheel, kind of pointless for Australia, but it is there anyway. You've got USB connectivity up here, also in the center console as well. No wireless phone charging, which is a bit disappointing, but a very clear heads-up display that you can configure to put whatever you want in there. In terms of the driving tech, radar cruise control with stop and go functionality. That means it will stop the car entirely if you're in traffic and have the radar cruise control activated. And then a semi-automatic steering function. So hit that button, it will kind of steer through lanes for you as part of its lane keeping assistant program. Works okay, but it's something that I prefer not to rely on. Other safety mechanisms, you've got driver attention monitor. So there's a camera there that's looking at us all the time to make sure we're not falling asleep. Oh yeah, almost forgot. Sunroof too, standard. Let's chat comfort and practicality and storage first. So phone. Where are you going to put it? Well, it sits fairly easily up the front here. There is no wireless phone charging though. It is available on the Mazda 3 in other markets, just not Australia, strangely. 2 cup holders up the front there. Massive door pockets, so you can put all your bottles and whatever other rubbish you and your family generate into the door pockets there. This is a whopper of a center console as well. And then this slides too. Oh yeah, have a look at this thing as well. Little coin slot. What about build quality? It is pretty good, but if you go over here to the glove box, that's all fine. But then it sits kind of loose on the other side. The center console is a little wonky. this whole thing isn't really all that secure. So look, it is good, but it isn't exactly a Rolls Royce in here in terms of the build quality and how it all feels put together. The standard sound system in the Astina is pretty impressive. It's a Bose sound system, 12 speakers. There is a secret speaker that I'll show you later on. But what the engineers did in this car, especially the sound engineer who developed the way the sound system interacts with the user, instead of having the subwoofer on the doors placed at the bottom, they've moved it right up to the top beneath the window cowl. So it adjusts the sound and the frequency inside the cabin. So you're always hearing bass, and it feels a little stronger as well because it is sort of in that chest area. The song that the engineer plays to tune these sound systems is Hotel California by the Eagles. Let me know in the comments below which song you love playing in your car. What is your ultimate driving song? Hotel California is up there for me, but so is Darude Sandstorm. But we won't go into my terrible choice of music. Mazda 3's never really been the height of backseat space, and not a lot has changed. Have a look at this. My knees are literally into the back of that seat. I've got no toe room at all. And this seat is in my normal driving position. And I keep saying this, but I've got these gangly long legs. So if you are shorter than me, you're probably going to fit okay here, and your driver's seat isn't going to be that far back, but it is a pretty cramped space. Headroom is reasonable, but again, if you're taller than me, you're going to find it a bit of a struggle to fit in. You do have handles to hold onto, which is fairly handy. You then have map pockets in the back of the passenger seat, none in the driver's seat, rear air vents. Thank goodness for this. A lot of people, they just don't get our complaints about this. If you've ever been in the back of a car in Australia on a 42-degree day, you will thank rear air vents. So you've got to have them there. Center armrest here, so you can have division between you and whoever's stuck next to you. 2 cup holders in there too. Look at this, ISOFIX points, and then you have the tether mounts on the back of the seats as well. So this is a pretty decent place to be seated with enough door storage there for odds and ends, but it isn't a place you really want to be spending a great deal of time. So back to my analogy of old mate at the pub giving you less but costing more. It's kind of the same story here with the Mazda 3 and also the new Corolla. Boot space is less. How do you go to a new car and have less boot space? It's weird. So 295 litres, 13 litres less than the last one. So about 5% less, which is just a really strange thing for a new car. But anyway, under here we have a Space Saver spare tyre. The trend in Australia was to have full-size spares, but we now seem to be all going down the path of Space Savers. People seem very confident they won't be getting flat tyres out in the middle of nowhere. Oh, and also you're going to be the envy of your mates because inside your spare wheel is a Bose subwoofer. That is seriously cool. This thing is interesting too. This is the cargo blind. Now, it's interesting because it is in 2 parts. So normally this is just a 1-part thing, but this has a fold in it. So it's a much bigger space there to cover, and that comes off fairly easily. And then you can store that, or even just leave it at home if you don't need it. But remember, this stops thieves from looking inside and then stealing all of your things while you're not inside the car. And that fairly easily clips back onto there. Now, how much space is usable here with 295 litres? Let's get our gigantic suitcase. Stick that in. That fits in nicely, and then our little bag fits in next to it. What you'll notice here is that boot lip doesn't sit too high, so you can load things over and then slide them in, and that type of packaging arrangement is pretty decent. On the back of those seats there, they fold down. There's a lock button here, so this isn't a power tailgate, but it does allow you to lock the car as you close it. But have a look at this. I found this interesting. When you close it, this glass shakes. See that? Yeah, not great. So driving the Mazda 3, it's a beautiful place to be, but I've got a problem. Every time I turn left, I kind of can't. My hand gets wedged in between this center armrest and the steering wheel. It is a really, really bad design. But that aside, the rest of this experience is sensational. The biggest advantage of this car is the 2.5 litre engine. So 2.5 litre, 4-cylinder petrol. Why is that so important? Well, most 2 litres in this segment are either turbocharged or supercharged. This one, on the other hand, is naturally aspirated, but because it is a bigger volume, it means you get a lot more torque out of the package. So that's 139 kilowatts of power and 252 Newton meters of torque. That is pretty much bang on for a car that weighs just under 1,400 kilograms. It means that it is nimble, it is nice to drive, and it never feels like it's lacking oomph. The other thing that I really love about this is the gearbox. It doesn't use a dual clutch gearbox, thank goodness. most other cars in this segment have some kind of nonsense gearbox to save fuel. What Mazda has done, on the other hand, is simply gone with a torque converter and then built it around the car, so the car is lighter, and that's the reason it only uses 6.5 litres of fuel per 100 kilometres. That is excellent efficiency for a car this size. Visibility, this is probably the only concern I got about this car. So the wing mirrors, I know they're decent in size, but this kind of just makes everything look like it's really close, and you're not afforded the visibility out the sides of the car. The front's good, the rear's okay, but there is quite a decent blind spot there on the C-pillar because of that swooping design of the car. But look, it is fine. You get blind spot monitors and all the safety aids to overcome all the bits you can't see. Mazda has absolutely nailed the ride here. It is so comfortable behind the wheel, despite the fact it's got fairly big alloy wheels. It's soaking up bumps on our little country circuit here nicely, and that means that you are always comfortable. Steering, it's kind of a spot where Mazda used to be a little wooden in the past, but this new Mazda 3 is fantastic. So it's an electrically assisted steering rack, plenty of communication through the wheel, and it's just so nice and easy to drive both in and around the city and also on these windy country roads. There is a system here as well called G Vectoring Plus. You're never ever going to see it in action because it works in the background. The engine's able to vary torque to the front two wheels so that when you're turning, you require less steering input, and it's a less tiring on the driver even when you're going in a straight line. It then also combines that with brake torque vectoring on each wheel too for dynamic driving. Find yourself a corner, throw it in, get on the throttle, nice amount of torque from that engine. Really sings. It's happy to be around that 5,000 RPM mark, pulling you along nicely. And then when you do tip it into a corner, it's nice and flat, it's communicative. It's actually really fun to drive. One of the biggest things you'll hear a motoring journalist grumble about with the new Mazda 3 is the torsion beam rear suspension. Now, torsion beam is an easy way to save a lot of money. The more sophisticated competitors in this segment use independent rear suspension because it gives you more control, especially when you're cornering. A torsion beam is effectively a fixed link between the two wheels on the rear axle. Now, that may seem all straightforward, and yes, they do have springs and dampers on each individual wheel, but ultimately, if you're going around a corner and you hit a bump mid-corner on one side of the car, you get a slight acceleration moment on the other side, and that can unsettle the car and make it feel a little uneasy. So obviously this isn't a sports car, so they've gone down that path to not only save money and weight, but also to make it as simple as possible. And look, it doesn't really affect the car too much. No one's ever really going to be able to tell the difference. It just drives really nicely to me anyway. So you'll notice that I'm not yelling at you, and that's because this car is finally quiet. Mazda has gone down the path of adding so much extra sound deadening around this cabin. There's different engine mounts and dampers and different seals in and around the car. And that means that now when you drive on a coarse chipped surface, you don't feel like you want to stop the car and walk, because that is what every single Mazda used to be like on a highway. They have really improved that, and it is such a good place to be seated. Oh, God, it looks good. The new Mazda 3 seriously ticks all the style boxes. It looks fantastic. It looks premium and expensive, which is good because it is $40,000, but for that you are getting a 5-year warranty, cap price servicing, and they have done such a stellar job with making it quiet on the highway. Seriously, these were so loud previously that it was like you're at a rock concert, just without any decent music. So it certainly nails all those boxes. The engine's great, the ride's good, infotainment is good but could be a little bit better, but it really does achieve everything it sets out to achieve. Now, if you like this video, hit like, don't forget to subscribe, and also hit the bell icon to get notified of all our future videos. Let me know if you bought one of these as well, because I'm keen to see what people in the real world think outside of us motoring journalists, and we will answer as many comments as we can below.